My name is Harold Holliger, and I'm from Blue Springs, Missouri. I am a Korean War veteran. Actually, I'm part of World War II veterans too. I entered the service in 1946, served in Korea in 1946-47, and was discharged and into the reserve units. In 1950, in October, I was called to serve again, and in 3 weeks I was in Korea, and I joined the 7th Infantry Division in A Battery. I might preface that I served in the 7th Infantry Division in C Battery of the 48th Field in 1946-47. And I joined the unit after it had left Hamnung and had been pretty well shot up. Luckily, I rejoined the 48th Field Artillery Battery in November of 1950. After that, I fired the 105 cannons, and in 6 months I went from PFC to Master Sergeant. If you can believe that, that was because of rotation, more or less, from the troops that were there, and most of those senior non-coms were getting ready to be discharged anyway from the service. They had 28, 29 years service. So anybody that knew anything about a cannon was promoted pretty quickly.
Hello, this is Charles Graham. I'm a native Texan, and I live now at Southmaid, Texas, which is up near Lake Texoma, North Texas, near Oklahoma. And I've lived there for the last 30 years or so. But October of 1947, I joined the Army for 3 years. Went to basic training at Fort Ord, and then they shipped me to Korea. I didn't even know where that was until I got on the ship and they started telling us. But anyhow, I landed in Korea in 1948 in the occupation forces. They assigned me to the G3 section of Headquarters Unit, 7th Infantry Division at Camp Sabingo near Seoul, and I spent a lot of time as a clerk typist there, typing up documents for our colonel who was the head of G3. And I noticed one day that they were shipping us to Japan in one of those top secret documents, and I said to myself, this is a mistake, because just as soon as they get us out of here, the North Koreans are going to come in. Well, I wasn't too wrong, because we left there in January 49, moved to Hokkaido, Japan, and spent the next year or so there, and then lo and behold, June the 25th of 1950, the North Koreans came down in force. So what to do? Well, Truman mulled it over, and he decided he wasn't going to let Korea go back to communism, so he started sending in the troops. He planned an invasion of Incheon because the other troops were being pushed almost off the peninsula. So the Incheon invasion was going to be taken over by the 7th Infantry Division and the 1st Marine Division. So he sent us over there from Japan into Incheon, and of course that changed the war. The North Koreans then started fleeing north, and then after that, they took the 7th Infantry Division and the 1st Marines, put them on ships, and sent them up to North Korea, Hamhung and Hungnam area. And then the Marines went toward the Chosin Reservoir, the 7th Division up toward the Yalu River. And some of our colonels were able to urinate in the Yalu River before the Chinese came in. That changed the war again. I had a lot of friends there, and some of my friends got killed right next to me. And I mentioned to some of the fellows here that the only wound I got was in the breeches leg. So I didn't get a Purple Heart, but I did get my Combat Infantryman's badge, which I'm very proud of. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Gene Richards. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I was drafted into the Army in 1951, January of 1951. Took basic training at Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. I landed in Korea in October of 1952 and was assigned to the 7th Infantry Division, 57th Field Artillery Battalion, and was immediately sent up on the MLR as a forward observer. I stayed with a rifle company for about 2 months, and then got transferred back to the Division Air Section as an air observer, where I flew as a part of a 2-man team in the little Cessna reconnaissance and observation planes, the Cessna L-19, nicknamed the Bird Dog. And I stayed in the air section until I earned enough points to rotate home, about 7 more months. And I got my 36 points and logged 219 missions in the L-19s, most of them over Pork Chop Hill. While I was in the air section flying in the little L-19s, we had 3 of them actually shot down during that 7-month period. The first one was in January of '53 when Lieutenant Conrad Provencher and PFC John Bickle were shot down, and the pilot, Provencher, was captured by the Chinese, so he spent about 7 months as a POW. We rescued Bickle, one of our chopper planes did, from the 7th Division Air Section. And then a little bit, the very next month, another L-19 in our 7th Division Air Section was shot down, and that was Sam Dugan and Rosie, Lieutenant Rosenzweig, we called him Rosie. And Rosie got burned pretty bad, was sent to a hospital in Japan, but he came back on duty a couple of months later. And then I tracked Sam Dugan down some 40 some odd years later. The fact is, I located about 50 of the pilots and air observers some 40 some odd years after Korea, and I started working on getting some of those guys together for a reunion. In July, just 3 weeks before I left there, before the ceasefire, we had our last L-19 was shot down, and on July the 4th, and it was Lieutenant Labor and the observer, can't remember his name right now, he's from Alabama. He went down with the plane and was killed. But we were able to rescue the pilot. I also tracked him down about 40 some odd years later and got to talk to him about that event that happened that night on the July the 4th, yeah. Okay, that's about it. Yeah, that's the 7th Division logo on my watch. I've had the watch for, I guess 7 or 8 years, and my wife got me this watch as a surprise, and I don't know where she actually got it. She probably purchased it out of one of the veterans magazines on one of their ads where they sell military memorabilia. That's where she got it. So she got it for me out of a vets magazine. So it's the 7th Division. I wear it all the time.
I'm Robert Stainbrook, and I entered service in September 1951. Took basic training in Camp Roberts, California. From there, I shipped to Korea. And my first job over Korea was ammo bearer for a 50 caliber machine gun with the 17th Infantry Regiment of Dog Company. And the gunner on the 50 caliber, he got killed, and so I inherited his job. And we continued on the front line for about 2 more months. Then we went. Well, we had one incident that was kind of different. The 7th Corps was wanting a prisoner of war, and one of the pilots and myself, we figured out if we rigged up a dummy and a parachute and flew over the enemy territory close to ours, and they wanted to capture a North Korean to interrogate him and see what was going on. And so we rigged up an oil line to pump oil on the manifolds of the airplanes, like indicated it was hit, and we drove down over the hill and kicked out the dummy with a parachute, and we had troops down there to capture, and they did capture 2, I think, prisoners of war. So it was kind of an odd way to get one, but we got him.
Donald Burns, and this is my wife Betty. We live in Buffalo, New York. I get drafted in 1953. I served 17 months in Korea in the occupied forces, and I was a barber before I went into the service, and every time I went someplace I was always cutting hair. Going overseas on the ship, I was a ship's barber. We hit Korea, I was a battery barber. Well, it was fun because it was like working back home. The colonel come in, how you doing, where you from, da 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 da, you know. Well, he was the first haircut I had. So he, well, Burns, he says, what do you think how a haircut should be? Well, sir, I says, sanitation isn't too good. No shower facilities, short haircuts. So he left, and a half hour later, the first sergeant came down with an AR and haircuts. White walls on the side and an inch on top. It didn't go too good with the guys rotating.
They go back.
I said, wait, I said, the colonel signed that, not me.
Gone.
What I liked about myself cutting hair in the Army was I got a chance to know everybody, you know? One guy said to me, he said, Burns, he said, you look just like my cousin. So I said to him, get your sister and send a picture. He brought the picture in, looked like me. It was crazy.
Okay, named John Stengel, born in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Went into the Army in 1959. From there, went boot camp. Went to Ford's FDC, Fire Direction Control School. From that, went home for a short period. Went to Korea on a boat. From there, went up to 8th Army. 8th Army transferred me to 4th and 76th Field Artillery Headquarters. I worked in the headquarters, FDC, and also on the guns for B Battery. A year and a half after I come back, there was an incident where the North Koreans fired on the OP I was on and shot those guys up, which would have been me if I was there. Luckily, I wasn't. So that was the OP that we went to. We were on, was that one that was shot up. Other than at night, if I had a chance, I always went out with a squad, which they walked between the river and DMZ. They had a trail there that a squad walked at every night, halfway out, halfway back. And I did several of those. I was a forward observer. Met a few of the North Koreans a few times, but no incidents ever happened.
See that the red light is on. My name is Doug Halbert, and I am 81 years old, and I started my service with the United States Army in 1951. I enlisted and went to the medical service school here in San Antonio, Texas at Brooke Army Medical Center. Became an operating room technician and a laboratory technician and an autopsy technician. Finished up there, I went to Korea to become a part of the 7th Infantry Division and clearing company, running the laboratory for blood cross matching and so forth during the final days of hostilities. My most dramatic experience that I had while serving as a medic was one night reaching into the back of an ambulance and finding that I had my hands around half a body, which was quite upsetting. I still shudder when I think of what I was doing, but it just happened and left me with an impression for the rest of my days. But we had, I was there during the final days of Pork Chop when we lost a lot of men unnecessarily as far as I'm concerned, defending a hill that on the 26th of July, orders came down, we don't want it anymore. And after 3 weeks of intense fighting, and the loss of a number of lives, we pulled off the hill, and that hill sits in the demilitarized zone now. Neither side can get to. Medical training that I received while I was in the service actually created the foundation for my entire career with the Aetna. I served in health insurance administration, eventually, of course, became a vice president of the company, and it was more people management then, but my entire career was health, medically oriented, and I got that foundation because of the education I received while I was in the Army.
Yeah, my name is Stan Warren. I entered the service in 1952, taking my basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And after my basic training, I was sent to Korea in 52, latter part of 52. There I was assigned to the 7th Infantry Division, 17th Infantry Regiment, Company E. At that time, we was primarily patrol action and whatnot, but I was involved in the Battle of Port Chop. I managed to survive that, and later on a night patrol, we were ambushed, and I was wounded. And at that time, I was evacuated to a Norwegian Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, where they removed all of the shrapnel from my hips and my arms and my rear end. And from there, I was sent back to the Swedish Red Cross Hospital in Busan, where I spent about a month. And then I was evacuated to a general hospital in Japan. I can't remember the name of the city where it was. It was a American General Hospital. And from there, I spent a total of almost 2 months in the hospital, and then I returned to my unit back in Korea. And, excuse me, while I was gone into the hospital, our company was changed into, I don't know exactly what it was called, but we had personnel carriers. I don't know, 50 or 60 personnel carriers that we maintained and kept available for use in the event. I might point out that while I was in the hospital, the war went into a armistice, and when I got back to Company E, we had these personnel carriers, which then I was just a corporal at the time, and I found out that we were a company that was supposed to provide personal carriers for troops in the event they had to move back to the front.